Hello, Wake Up New Zealand, Sakey speaking. Well, I spend many hours doing research, and I just decided that I would go on the World Economic Forum website. And it was there that I noticed the World Economic Forum impact, accelerating action on sustainable development through strategic intelligence. I thought, what's this all about? Klaus Schwab had written a number of comments referring to the post-COVID-19 crisis future. This is what he actually said. I'll have to read this out to you. We can emerge from the COVID-19 crisis if we act quickly and jointly, saying that the changes that are needed have already been seen in the response to the COVID-19 crisis. You know, all those restrictions and everything else, proving that a reset of the economy and social contract, social foundations is possible, and that this is the best chance to instigate stakeholder capitalism. And then he adds, here is how it can be achieved. So he's saying that everything that's happened as far as restrictions, lockdowns, and everything can be used to actually instigate this stakeholder capitalism with private-public partnerships, government and corporations worldwide, by using these sort of things, these restrictions. So firstly, it says, to achieve a better outcome, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of society and economies, all aspects of society and economies, change it all, transformation. And that includes education and social contracts, and also working conditions that every country from the United States to China must participate, and every industry from oil to gas to tech must be transformed. They're the words he uses. He said, in short, we need a great reset, a new normal of capitalism. Get rid of free market economy where you make your own free choice, individual choice. Get rid of that. We must build an entirely new foundation for our economic and social system. The fact is, there is one silver lining from this pandemic, and that's how quickly radical change can be made. And that is what he also said. He said, changes in our lifestyles that can be instant. And this did happen. People just made instant changes, just like that. So Klaus Schwab also added that populations have overwhelmingly shown a willingness to make sacrifices, for the sake of healthcare, other essential workers and vulnerable populations and elderly, adding, it's clear the will to build a better society, transform your society to one that looks like the COVID-19 restrictions, to build a better society does exist. Therefore, you must use it to secure the great reset that's needed so badly. By whom? Them? Of course it's them. So this, he said, will require a stronger, more effective government. So I'm going to send this to Winston Peters with a bigger push. This will demand private sector engagement every step of the way. The WEF article states there are three components to this, including the Great Reset agenda. Within these are included multi-stakeholder capitalism, that's Schwab's baby, withdrawing fossil fuel subsidies, that's all the coal and everything, total renewable energy, greenwashing of New Zealand as soon as possible, urgently. Now, so spending that's been implemented globally, this is a major opportunity. So governments that have actually been spending big time over the COVID period, Klaus Schwab is calling this an opportunity for the future. This is multi-stakeholder corporations, multi-stakeholder capitalism, private-public partnerships. With whom? The only ones I've heard about is the Indigenous elite. So who are they talking about? BlackRock? Asset management? Yep. And who else? Oh, let me see. New Zealand Steel is an Australian corporation. There we go. So they're talking about new rules governing intellectual property and also trade and commission. Large-scale spending have been implemented globally, and this is an opportunity for stakeholder capitalism. Strengthen ESG scores. Well, that's much like the Chinese communist system, isn't it? Social credit. So you get rewarded if you do comply, and you get punished if you don't. But no matter what you do, you get your choice taken away. So that's what they're talking about there. So harness the World Economic Forum's fourth industrial revolution when addressing health and social challenges. Well, let's see. Go to the Auckland Council website and you will see how they embrace the World Economic Forum and their fourth industrial revolution. It's there. So on the WEF website, Klaus Schwab also refers to the COVID-19 tracking, vaccines, testing stations, how civilians have complied to COVID restrictions, saying, imagine doing this, how possible it will be with his stakeholder capitalism in replacing the free market economy where people individually make choices as to what services they want and what they want to buy, where market is innovation, where prices can be competitive. This is going to kill New Zealand's small businesses and farmers. So he's talking about COVID-19 restrictions so quickly, saying, imagine how this could happen as to how quickly people changed during the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. The opportunity to reflect, reimagine, to reset our world, he said. And he said, now is the time for the Great Reset. That was Davos in June 3rd, 2020, with Prince Charles, now King Charles, as he was pushing the Great Reset agenda. And Charles was standing there supporting him, saying also it's a golden opportunity, a narrow window of where a golden opportunity can be had to push stakeholder capitalism and the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution that go back to the 2010 Global Redesign Initiative of Klaus Schwab. So that was used when in 2008-9 he had a gathering of businesses, corporations, academia, governments, and this was the time of the Great Recession. And he said to them, what do you want to happen now? And then about a year later, 2010, he introduced the 604-page Global Redesign Initiative. And now he's still doing it. He's continued to do it. He's never stopped. And, you know, this is not new. He has been collaborating with global governments for the last 4 decades. And that's what we have. So this is very concerning when Klaus Schwab documents, and he said, our world. His world, not our world. He wants to transform our world. So again, he keeps on going on about our world. This global organisation, well, they've not been elected by the people of New Zealand into Parliament to make public policy decision making, even to influence it. They should never be influencing it. So by doing that, it's very undemocratic. And Winston Peters, I want to know what he's going to say about this. I will ask for a response. When Jacinda Ardern was Prime Minister, she boasted a Bill and Melinda Gates gathering. She was a speaker, and she said that New Zealand was the first one in the world to adopt UN Agenda 2030. So in adopting that, well, UN Agenda 2030 was non-binding. By entering into domestic policy, it became binding on the government, hence the people of New Zealand. Are we ever told these things beforehand? Never. We are never told these things. When I opposed the UN Global Compact on Migration, the only reason people knew about it because it was spread. I went on to all these Facebook pages and people got to know about it. If I hadn't known about that, people of New Zealand would have been none the wiser. And this is what happens. So this is not about the people's best interests at all. It's a dark side of politics. So this multi-stakeholder capitalism only, if you look back in history, history repeats itself, and it's always failed. So, but Klaus Schwab says we should seize this moment to ensure stakeholder capitalism remains the new dominant model, destroying free market economy. He announced that stakeholder capitalism is everywhere. It is. It is everywhere. So Schwab's theme of the Davos Manifesto in 2020 was stakeholder capitalism, and now this year is a fragmented world. The origins of stakeholder capitalism was launched in 1972, and Klaus Schwab captured it as his baby. So in August 2019, the WEF actually documented on their website that it was announced that stakeholder capitalism is on the mantra of the Business Roundtable, where almost 200 CEOs of the largest corporations have endorsed it. And the WEF is an official partner of the UN that makes international laws that our government take on board, put into our policy making. And the WEF, these corporations, are the influencers of our policies through those international agreements. So, they've had many articles, reports authored about the failure of stakeholder capitalism. The Financial Times on the 5th of the 2nd, 2022 reported on the failures of stakeholder capitalism and ESG investing, saying that ESG investing misses the realities of market power in the age of corporate concentration and their rising profits. So also stakeholder corporations with their stakeholder capitalism is well known for their ever adept exploiting politics of the moment, increasing the risk of corporate power influencing government policy making. Is undemocratic, undermines the need to act effectively, willingly when it comes to public interest. So stakeholder capitalism, public-private partnerships, often called PPPs, at risk include Between the Crown, the government, and partners that will be big businesses or corporations that are non-elected, they influence policy decision making, not for the best interest of the people, but they can't exist without profits for their shareholders, so profits must come first. Hence, market power, political power, the cognitive capture of policy makers. This is not new, and it's worldwide. Klaus Schwab's Stakeholder Capitalism also refers to various stakeholders being involved, including employees. You might say, oh, that's good. That's not bad. However, shareholder interest profits are very extremely important for the corporation to survive. They can't survive without their shareholders. So this has been exposed as stakeholder capitalism as an emperor with little or no clothes. So investment model. This is stakeholder capitalism. It's an investment model. So I question, how can shared prosperity actually coexist with the demands of an investment model that partners with a government that puts profit before people? Surely this is not in the best interests of the people of New Zealand, of taxpayers, of ratepayers, of the general public of New Zealand, of this generation, future generations to come. What will happen to them? How much debt, how much misery, how much harm will this do? The United Nations and World Economic Forum, they signed this official partnership on the 13th of June 2019. This includes Agenda 2030, the SDGs, 169 targets that Jacinda Ardern made as binding in policies in Parliament. So to be compliant to this. So there's some controversy around this and concern. The global partnership, where the WEF becomes the influencer of international laws, hence indirectly policy making in nation states. Now, the reason they actually signed that agreement, and it's well documented on the WEF, was to accelerate UN Agenda 2030 because the WEF have the power and the money behind them to actually accelerate that. However, that was an official partnership. They've been partnering the UN for yonks years. So most recently, the WEF and UN Habitat launched the Global Partnership for Local Investments in Local Communities. Now, this is a real biggie for us. So just listen to this. Global Partnerships for Global Investments in Local Communities. You're talking about local governments here. You're talking about councils through a public-private partnership, collaboration. So Dyfed Aubrey, the UN Habitat Sub-Program Coordinator, SDG Cities, Auckland is a C40 city, and they collaborate with SDG cities, lead the financing of infrastructure developments. And this is documented. It says, as the needs of thousands of small and large cities for the next 30 years, providing a great opportunity to bring together the right actors with the right ideas as to effectively provide solutions to financing cities at scale. Cities in New Zealand, in nation states, whether they're small or large, financed by a global movement to accelerate global movement for public-private collaboration. This is on the website of WEF. Questions. I have questions around that. Who is going to be accountable and responsible? Who are the so-called right actors, right global actors? What are the effective solutions to what infrastructure? How much debt and disruption, harm will cause everyday New Zealanders, this generation and generations to come? Small businesses, the farming community, small farmers, and the community of New Zealand as a whole, your health, your education, and everything else. What global movement? No description, no identification is given. It has been well recorded that public-private partnerships are used to conceal public borrowing while providing long-term state guarantees. Guarantees for profits for private companies. The private sector corporation, that's businesses and companies, that must maximize profits to survive themselves. That's the nature of the game. Does this even ensure quality public services? I don't think so. Who's going to ensure that happens? Well, the UNWEF collaboration on stakeholder capitalism of public-private partnerships is now extensively promoted worldwide in UN state nations. And it's deliberately they're using the COVID-19 crisis as justification to do this, to deliberately exploit nations by the stakeholder capitalization of public-private corporations or large businesses, which will obviously, because of competition, destroy small businesses in nation states and farming communities. Already, farmers in New Zealand are suffering from very restrictive regulations, and more to come. So this on top of that, if farmers are destroyed, then we are all going to be impacted commercially, domestically, in very serious ways. And if this stakeholder capitalism actually, with the public-private partnership, gets hold of New Zealand, gets a strangleholder on New Zealand, watch out, people. This will be the end all and be all. You will watch poverty. The middle income will drop down to the poverty. It will be a poverty-driven country. It will be like Argentina was really great. Then what happens? Oh, Venezuela. Then what happened to them? And look at them now. They're in a terrible state, and they have been for a long time. So we're talking about nation states, governments, the UN, heavily influencing powerful lobby of the biggest services and financial corporation, such as BlackRock. So we're talking about BlackRock asset management. They're asset managing our banks right now for corporations, large businesses that we don't even know. They're looking after their profits. And we're looking at global consulting and law firms all out to reap profits. Profits around health, water, forestry, renewable energies, windmills, solar farms, etc. Repeating profits for greenwashing. The climate change scam. This is what this is all about. Transparency is zilch. Accountability will be zilch, as will be responsibility. The taxpayers will pay big time, so will ratepayers. There'll be a serious loss of jobs and things will get a lot worse. Yes, it's a bearer of bad news because this is what is happening right now. This new UNWEF strategy that is recently been come into play. All the above that I have read to you raise alarm bells for me. The PPPs, I believe it's going to cost a lot of money, cost our country big time, where public borrowing can be concealed. Long-term state guarantees for private profits for companies. Where's the public interest there? So I will send this to Peters, and I have the links for this, and I will say to him, look, what are you doing about this? This where they say that our global economy, our economy locally, our society must be transformed. Every country from the US to China must be transformed. Radical changes must take place, some instantly. Healthcare, education, to secure the Great Reset that's so badly needed by Klaus Schwab, requires a stronger, effective government. Demand private sector engagement every step of the way. New rules. Just like bring it about. This transformation they can use for this to happen. They were looking at the COVID-19 restrictions and said, oh, well, if populations can just obey them like that with hardly a question and be so compliant, sacrifice their lifestyles for that, then we could use that for this. That's the World Economic Forum for you. Wake up, New Zealand.